Aorihwa Kahnawake and welcome to another episode of Zawana Aorihwa.
We'll be bringing you up to date on all that's happening in and around Kahnawake.
In recent headlines, the H1N1 flu virus has many Kahnawake panicking, especially since the virus has been confirmed in the community. Mohawk TV spoke with Dr. Jones from the Academy Memorial Hospital Center on the issue.
So H1N1 is a flu, all right? It's very similar to regular seasonal flu. It's not any different in terms of the symptoms, which are the same for both. So fever, headache, sore throat, aches and pains. People feel they've been hit by a Mack truck, and that's the same for both kinds of flus. What's different about H1N1 is because it's called a de novo virus. What that means is that it's a brand new flu. It's a new composition of 4 different subtypes into a new virus, which we have not been exposed to in terms of humankind on the planet. So at this point, we're all susceptible to getting the flu. And even though it's a mild flu, because of the volume of people that can potentially be ill all at the same time, that's what the concern is. And there are very few people who can get very seriously ill with this, and there have been very few people who have actually died. And so it's a question of proportions, not a question of severity. So it's important for people to understand that it's not more serious than the regular flu, it's just the flu. But for a small slice of people who get very ill, they get very ill and they require intensive care units and require a lot of care. The flu, run-of-the-mill flu and H1N1 are the same symptoms. But what we do know from the testing that has been done, the seasonal flu virus is not circulating right now. All of the tests, for about 97% of the positive tests that have been done, show H1N1. So that is the circulating virus right now for the flu. And the flu, you have to have fever. You have to have a cough. And then you can have a sore throat, you can have aches and pains. We know that in children they can also present with some gastro-like symptoms, and we know there's a lot of people in the community with gastro-like symptoms. But the key is really the fever, and so fever and cough. Well, there's been a lot of publicity in terms of respiratory etiquette, in terms of how to not to spread the virus from one person to another, not how to pick it up. So I think people seen lots of the advertisements about sneezing, coughing into your elbow, into your sleeve. Hand washing, we know, in terms of decreasing transmission from picking it up, putting it onto your face. But the most important thing we know is that people can shed virus for up to 7 days after they start having symptoms. The first 24 hours, we can't control that, because people don't have symptoms, but at least the 7 days after, we recommend that people stay home from work, stay home from school, stay home from sporting activities. It's not the time to go to the mall or to a theater or shopping, etc. And the second most important thing is vaccination. And we know that vaccination is probably going to be the single most important health measure that we have to stop the spread of this wave. And what vaccination does is it kind of provides a wall of protection to the people who are the most vulnerable to getting sick. And the more people you vaccinate, the less likelihood that the virus will continue to spread. If we have a very unsuccessful vaccine campaign, what's going to happen is that this virus will continue to spread within the community and will continue, and then we'll be facing maybe a third and even a fourth wave. And so the hope is that by having a widespread vaccination campaign, you get as many people as possible vaccinated, we will be able to protect people from them picking up the illness. Okay. And the information that we've had so far is that it's a safe vaccine. It's not any different than regular flu season vaccine in terms of side effects, in terms of profile. We have not seen any peaks of any weird and wonderful side effects or diseases that are showing up. And the studies are showing that it's probably between 80 and 95% effective versus regular flu vaccines are a little bit less, maybe between 60 and 85%. So that means even though we all get vaccinated, there may be a 10 to 15% of the population who, despite that, may not be protected. But this is the best tool that we have right now. Absolutely. Because the risk, if you look at the risk of a serious side effect from the vaccine, one of the serious side effects is Guillain-Barré. That is something that has come up. It's a very rare neurological disease, and it occurs in less than 1 in a million persons who have the vaccine. But your risk of having a serious illness from this flu that's going around is more like 1 in 1,000. And so, you can sort of figure out the numbers. You're more advantageous in having the vaccine and protecting yourself from potentially a serious illness from this from the flu versus a potential serious consequence from the vaccine. So I would certainly recommend it. And because of the proportion, if you think that regular flu season will affect 10% of the population, but this flu has the potential of affecting 30 to 50% of the population, the proportion, although very, very small, who get very, very ill is going to overburden our hospitals and our intensive care units. And so the problem is going to be having access to intensive care units to take care of our children, our pregnant patients, our elders, and people with chronic illnesses who are going to require very intensive care. We know that First Nation persons are at increased risk. We know that the data is showing that First Nation communities have 4 to 5 times an increased risk of complications.
Why?
Of a host of reasons, but they think number one is because of the youth. First Nation communities have younger people, have more pregnant patients, have more people with chronic illnesses like who are diabetic, who have heart disease, have chronic illnesses such as asthma and renal and liver disease. The vaccination campaign is starting next week, and I think it's very important for people to understand that that is probably going to be the single most important thing that they're going to be able to do in order to prevent the continued spread of this virus and to protect their loved ones, to protect their children, to our pregnant women, our elders, people with chronic illnesses.
So there's a lot on this story here, Regan, and I know you've been following this. Can you give us a little bit of an update on what's going on in the community?
Yeah, well, the virus was confirmed here in Kahnawake last week. And since that time, there has, people had been talking about it in the community anyways because it's been in the media for so long at this point. But now it seems to just have blown up because we are in the middle of another flu season. And every year this happens, but every year we haven't had H1N1 to deal with, right? So everyone's panicking. And I surf Facebook quite often, and I noticed that on the community walls and on people's walls that are friends of mine, it's just everybody's talking about it, putting it on their status, and you don't have like 1 or 2 posts going to a status, you have like 30,
right.
With long discussions taking place. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And just people panicking, they're not sure, what to expect. Should they get the vaccine? Shouldn't they get the vaccine? Some people are keeping their kids home from school, in an effort to help with them not to get sick, or if they are sick, then they should be kept home from school. And there's just a lot of issues, that people are discussing in terms of getting the vaccine. Should they and shouldn't they, and what's the difference? So hopefully Dr. Jones answered some of those questions for our viewers.
Right.
One of the things that you're starting to see in a lot of schools is that the attendance is low.
Lowered, yes. There was a story in the Montreal Gazette this week, and it had also been confirmed here by some of the parents that send their kids to Cooper Academy. There was over 200 kids that were sent home in the past few days. And also here in the community, from survival school to step by step, the earliest of age groups, have more larger than normal absences, including some of their staff. So
And
we're seeing it,
I think a lot of the panic too has escalated since the death of the 13-year-old boy in Toronto,
Yes,
and there was also
yes.
a confirmed death of a young girl in Cornwall.
In Cornwall.
On
who had
Cornwall.
died
That was last
in
week as
Ottawa,
well.
right?